Good evening to you all, dear viewers from Church of Uganda Family TV. Welcome to this episode of Let's Talk. My name is Emmanuel, Odeke, and the show is called Let's Talk. Today we'll be discussing food security. That's what we'll be discussing today, and I'm sure you'll understand what you need to know about food security. And with me in the studios today is a gentleman called Jockas Mate. Jockas Mate is the executive director of Wilmate Development Foundation. And so today I'll have him here for the next 50 minutes or so as we'll be discussing food security, particularly in Uganda. So that's what we'll be doing. Mate, you're welcome.
Thank you, Emma. And this is very good for me to be here to discuss all about the World Food Safety Day. You remember that Uganda is one of the agri-producers in Uganda, rather in the world at large. And the contributions we are making as a country, they are really good in a way that our people can't go hungry because we are producing food. But this does not guarantee that the food that we are eating is safe. So in line with the World Food Safety Day, food security without food safety cannot be guaranteed if the two can't move together. So my name is Mate Jockas. I work with Wilmate Development Foundation Uganda, sub-grantee to the Right to Grow program, which is also under the Hunger Project Uganda. Partners that are looking into the issues of nutrition of our children under 5 years of age, at the same time looking at the issues of water, sanitation and health in different districts of Uganda.
Exactly. So very interesting facts here about Mate and what they do. So today is the 6th of June, and tomorrow is 7th of June, and I will be celebrating the World Food Safety Day. That will be tomorrow. And so because we'll be celebrating that tomorrow, we've thought it wise to discuss it today. As we see, is the food that we're eating safe enough? But before you even think of eating safe food, is the food surely there? So those are a few things that we'll be looking at today, and what can be done. So we'll be looking at food security or insecurity. So because there are two different things. You might be having food security, yet actually you don't have food security. And so you have food insecurity. So one of the two should be the matter and should be the case for today's discussion. So let me start from that point. Do we really have food security in Uganda?
We do, but it is not guaranteed. You realize that most of our communities that you are living in, despite of Uganda being one of the highest producers of agricultural products, but the food that you're producing is basically food that is from garden to consumption, meaning that most of our people are producing to survive. That puts us at a danger that now, if all the food that you're producing is purely for consumption, then it means that we don't have food security in Uganda. Yes, we know that people have land and people are good at growing, but you realize that there are those homes which are actually going hungry on a daily basis because they don't have food, they don't have what to eat, and whatever they are feeding on is from garden to consumption. Others are actually looking into areas where they grow. After growing, they take straight to the market. But remember, these are the very things you take to the market, meaning that the moment you take it to the market, again, you're going to pull money to go and buy the very food that you are taking to the market. So what does it mean? If you're producing, you're selling, it means that you're not keeping food which you are supposed to consume as a household. You're going to spend money on purchase. So you're not secure. What about storage? Before, when we were growing, we used to have granaries, but today we don't have them. Meaning that even the houses people are constructing today, they don't have storage facilities. Whatever they are producing, they are taking to the markets because they want money. So how would you be secure when everything you're producing you're taking to the market?
So in other words, you're saying we are insecure as far as food is concerned.
That's it.
Because I was actually about to ask you, how can we be secure? Yet of a few months ago, Karamoja was dying of hunger, and people were being buried, not because they were sick, not because they were malnourished, but because there was literally nothing to eat. Now, when you're in such a state, you ask yourself, what should be done?
Now, when you look at the strategies that we have seen working, when we don't have community stores where people voluntarily keep their food, it means that our people are going to die more of hunger. Even our government itself, do we have storage facilities where people harvest and keep their harvests for a given period of time? That everyone, it's a mandate of every household. Whatever you have today, you have to keep a 5% of your produce in the community store, which we don't have. Meaning that people only look at production, but the storage is not considered. And when you see cases of Karamoja, people dying of hunger, this wouldn't have been a problem if we had storage facilities in place where people keep their food and they are able to rescue community X that is actually undergoing hunger issues. But these are lacking in Uganda. We don't have any storage facility that you say, okay, if I visit, let's say, Karamoja, there is this store where I can find community members lining up to store their food, their harvests. We know that, yes, we have pastoralists in Uganda who are always moving from time to time. But is it a guarantee that they have what to eat? Or they only survive on milk? We know that climate change is also on the rise. The grass is being, scorched up by the sun. Even the food that we are growing today, if you try to move around Uganda, be the people who are being affected by floods, you realize that whatever they are producing today is really limited, that they cannot survive on it for more than 1 month because food is not available. Be it the seedlings, the inputs we are using today, are they really sufficient that if I plant this today, I'll be able to harvest this amount of crops or harvest? The harvest we are making, the inputs we are using are all substandard in a way that only a few, those that can afford, are the ones that can grow plenty of food and sell to the highest bidder. We are going to shift to that because the security of our households when it comes to food is not guaranteed.
Gone are the days when we had granaries. But I think in our home, deep in the village, we still have a few. But what happened to the government granaries? As far as I know, there were some. And seasonally, every household was supposed to deposit a certain amount of food, or rather, the government would actually buy from the farmers and keep this food just to make sure that in case of the future, things go bad or things go wild, the government has a backup plan. What happened to those stores?
I can take you back when you look at the issues when COVID came in. People were locked down in their own houses. In simple terms, we became prisoners of our own. In a way that the survival, we were only looking at what government will bring to our homes. But even those that we are supposed to do the farming themselves, we are also affected by COVID lockdowns. Now, we are still recovering from the same. Meaning that if we had the stores, instead of calling people, please donate food so that we can give to the people, even the scarcity of the food, you realize that many people complain that, oh, I never received food. Those who were looking like in good houses or in fenced houses, we are never considered. Some of them complain of that. Meaning that the storage facilities we have that belong to government, are they really actively involved in providing relief, or only when the problem comes in? These are some of the things that we have tried to ignore in terms of understanding how our structures work in terms of storage facilities that belong to our government.
But let's I don't know. Looking at the two things here, COVID being a case study, did government in any case say that we are picking this food from our stores, or they were going to the markets to buy food from people who are literally farmers, and some of which some people resorted to hiding food and selling it expensively because they knew that is the only chance they had. So does government really have those stores now as we speak?
As we speak, we may say that because we have agencies that have really tried enough to make sure that food is always available, more so the prisons, which has indeed done a great job in terms of cultivating, farming, agriculture, also having their own stores. You realize that on average of, let's say, around 70% of the food that is consumed by government entities, be it prisons, police and others, is being produced by the prisons. These are some of the lessons that we should pick from. What if we shift the same kind of strategy to our communities? We may be looking only at the prisons, but what about the grassroots person who survives on 1 meal per day or none? What about our children under the age of 5? How are they surviving if we have no alternatives in terms of food security? That now our mothers who are actually feeding them on some standard foods, of which you find that on an average of 40% of our children are actually eating food that is not standard. They are eating food that is not safe. It's not secure for them to eat. And the diseases that these children under 5 are carrying are actually foodborne. Meaning that if our food that we are feeding our children is not safe, what about us, the elders? What about the type of inputs we are using? Because our farmers are complaining that, look here, our problem is not the land. We have the land, but our land has lost the nutrients that we can really dwell on, and we say, okay, we have been using these methods of farming from day one to this day, but they have not yielded enough to an extent that I have enough food in my own home. What about government? Is there a channel that we can use to replicate the same methodology that they are using in the prisons to the communities?
But I don't know, have you bothered to ask yourself, why is prison producing this much of food? Because now, if they don't produce, who is going to feed the prisoners? Because they have guys who are taken in as criminals. They are not productive. They are in prison, they are meant to be indoors, they are meant to be in custody. And so, but however much they're in custody, they are not supposed to die there. And food is one of the things that they're supposed to eat to make sure they're alive and safe. So you want to think that prison takes advantage of a few of these guys who are about to be left to go and do a little digging around the pieces of land that they can easily access. But we want to ask ourselves, why are people with chunks of land not having food to feed themselves for a dry season?
You see, despite of people having land, chunks of land, for example, we know that there is a lot going on when it comes to land access. But those who have enough land have actually less food. If you try to move around most of our villages deep there, you realize that these people have gone in to say, oh, yes, I may have land, but do I have what to grow there? The seedlings we are using to grow, to cultivate our land, I may not have the energy or the resources, which of course is money, to make sure that the land I have is being utilized. Others, it's also out of ignorance that, okay, if I have land, it's my land. So you have nothing to tell me what I'm supposed to do on my land. And that's something that has really triggered what we call community mindset change in terms of adoption to agricultural innovativeness. If we don't innovate our lands, then those who have land will remain with the land without food. What about those who have small spaces but they have food? It means that their mindset is straight to food production. That let me produce what to eat today so that tomorrow I don't go hungry. Because if today people are hungry and you have land, whom to blame? Most people say, okay, let me blame the government. No, it's not the government. Now it comes back to us, the people. You have the land, but you're not utilizing it.
So in other words, people have what to use for production.
That's it.
But the way to produce is the problem.
Others have gone ahead to adopt what we call white collar jobs, that, oh, if me, I don't work in an office, I wear a suit, then you have nothing to tell me. Meaning that if the white collar jobs are taking the largest scale than the blue collar, the hard ones, the hardcore, which is agriculture, most people have abandoned agriculture, that it is for the elderly, yet actually it is for everyone. And one of the richest sectors everyone can engage in is agriculture, because it is less tiresome if you know how to do it smart.
If you don't know how to do it smart,
you will suffer.
You face the wrath.
Yeah.
More about this when we return after the break, and I can assure you we are still discussing food security. And in the next segment of the show, we'll be looking at food safety. Is the food you're eating safe, or you are literally eating what you don't understand? And before you notice, you start crying of stomach ache, of cancer that you don't understand where it has come from, and you never know. This might be from the food you eat when we return from the break. Welcome back from that short break. For us in agriculture, when you overuse a piece of land, you're required to let it rest a bit so that when you get back to it, the produce therein is reasonable. And so, being that today we are discussing food and agriculture, we also had to take a small break so that we come back more energetic and more fresh for the next segment of this show. And so we are still discussing food security, and more so looking at the case study of Uganda, however big it may be, but we are trying to put sticks together to see how safe we are as far as food is concerned. And so looking at food security and the status quo of the food, are we eating safe food? With every food being sprayed, when some anti-things come into when some weeds come into the crops, how do we remove them? Those days then, we had to get our hose and get into weeding and remove them. Nowadays, we don't do the weeding. The chemicals do the weeding. How safe is the food that we eat? So we'll be discussing that in this particular segment of the show. So, but how safe is the food we eat? All we do is come and buy food from Nakasero and all other markets where we go shopping. But do we bother to know how this food gets to the market? The after harvest, from the point of planting to the point of weeding, to the point of harvesting, to the point of transporting this food to the market, and then to our houses where we can easily do the final bits and then consumption is done.
Truly, when you look at how everyone is actually enjoying the tomatoes at home, that is one of the examples. You realize that we are only considering the purchase, but we don't consider the post-harvest handling. And recently, I think that was last year, when we engaged market vendors on the methods they can use when it comes to post-harvest handling, that the things that you're selling to us, how safe is it? The tomatoes that have that yellow color of ours.
Is it yellow or whitish?
Whitish or yellowish, something like that.
Posho. And they tell you, please don't remove it. Because if you remove it, the
tomatoes go. They rot. Do you know why our food rots quicker? Because it is chemically grown, chemically harvested, chemically consumed. And meaning that the food that we are harvesting from the gardens, there are methods, there are things that people need to do while they are harvesting these very things, and mostly perishables, which are at risk of being consumed by an unrisked person who is not aware that this tomato has chemicals, or this sukuma wiki, which I'm going to buy, has been preserved. They call them preservatives, but these are not. They are endangering our lives as human beings. And this year's theme, when it comes to food safety, it reminds us that if the food we are eating is not safe, then it's not secure. And it's up to us now to think through that now. How best can we educate our vendors? If the farmers have failed to understand, what about the vendors? We know that most of them harvest these very perishables when they're not actually ready. Try to cut the tomato into two. Some of them are not ready. Even the skin of the tomato, we know that we are growing different varieties. But are these really ready to be harvested from the garden that you are selling to the end consumers? You realize that 1 out of 10 per day falls ill because of contaminated food that we are eating worldwide per day. Someone says stomach ache, but it comes from the food you've eaten. The vegetables you are enjoying, the mangoes you're buying from the market, how long are they being kept and where are they being harvested from? What was the storage facility? Be it transport means. Most of them first spray them before they move them out from the garden, and we are aware of that. But do we have regulations to make sure that these things that are brought to the market, we really have a standard for it? That if we test and there is a chemical application in your stuff that you're selling to the end consumer, then you are prosecuted or your things are taken off the market, so that now we protect the lives of consumers. Consumers are not being protected because we are aiming at making money from what we're harvesting. So, does it mean that the market vendors should continue to sell things that they know really that they were not well handled when it comes to post-harvest handling?
Now that is from post-harvest. Could we look at a little lower, from the time of preparing the soils to the time of planting to the time of weeding? Because that is a full process. There is a process that takes on there. What happens in the time of preparing the soils currently in Uganda? Let's speak the truth to the people. What happens while farmers are preparing the soils to plant these crops?
Now, at our end, one of the things that we have engaged our farmers in is climate smart agriculture, where basically we deal in organic farming. That, look here, if you want to grow smart and you want to reap more from your soil, from your land that you have, we understand that our land has lost all the nutrients. Almost 99% of our land has lost natural fertility because we have overused the land over and over again. The same methods of farming, the same methods of cultivating. Meaning that I will end up buying NPK or any other applicant that you're going to use, and you just add in the soil without knowing how it's supposed to be applied. And you don't even know the effects of over-applying all these things into your land. If you practice organic manure, the scent of the harvest is different. But the ones that we are planting chemically use chemicals to weed masters, something like that, to do away the weed. But remember, if you use something else to flip the soil a little bit and make sure that these greens that you're seeing, that you're washing away with the chemicals, are actually used as manure to the land, it means that now what you're going to harvest is going to be of quality. But if you just apply chemicals from the first day of cultivation, you plant, remember even today, you cannot harvest beans if you don't spray them. I was surprised at home when mom was applying chemicals that if we don't spray these beans, we are not going to be able to harvest anything. Trust me, right now they're all dry. Because they're saying that if we don't spray, we are not going to harvest anything. And remember, the climatic conditions of our Uganda is becoming different and very interesting to the farmers. Meaning that if we don't grow from the first stage, we have different methods of irrigation. We know that the sun is really killing most of the plantations. But what if we apply the simple methods of farming, like drip irrigation, using the plastic bottles people are busy throwing out every day? You can use the same as an irrigation tool to your tomatoes, to your things that you grow in different ways, be it maize itself. But how are you doing it? What about if you shift from the chemicals and you practice organic? We are busy, we drink water every day. and we urinate on a daily basis. But this is one of the best manures you can ever find. If it is stored well and it is also applied in the right way.
You mean human urine?
Human urine.
Even the one for drunkards?
If that is called urine. Because it's one of the things that we have taught our farmers to utilize. You can store it in your empty jerry can that you're not using at home. The one that you cut and put it at the side. Be it the house refuse, the things that you use at home, be it the cabbage husks, be it the maize and all that. All these things can be used as manure if they are applied well. Without applying chemicals. The people who are cooking on firewood, that ash can be used as one of the things that you can apply in your garden without applying chemicals. But people don't know the basics when it comes to farming. We are doing it the same way how we used to do it by our grandfathers. Then from there, we used to know that harvesting, just get your knife, let's say maize. You go in the garden, get your sack, put in the sack, put in the store, know nothing, put on the ground where it has soil, you don't want to know, because that is how you have been used on doing things. Now, changing business as normal, meaning that if you harvest and put it down on the soil, or you say, okay, if I'm to harvest tomatoes, I make sure I harvest them when they're still raw, because so and so will come and steal them. Food security, even at the gardens, it's not safe. You'll see that most of the farmers are actually harvesting their things when they are still raw, when they're not ready, because they are scared of person X who is going to come and steal their things even before they harvest them. We said, okay, but that's not an excuse to poor harvest handling, meaning that you've grown, at flowering you're spraying with chemicals, at harvesting you are applying chemicals, even before you sell to the market, you take them to the market, you are spraying chemicals. What are we on? People are not safe when it comes to food safety.
Does this suggest that the funny illnesses that are coming up today as a result of the chemicals sprayed to the soils, to the weeds, before they are taken to the market?
True. That's very correct, because if you try to see try to take a sample in different markets of ours, there are very few of the market vendors who actually take time to wash, let's say now the tomatoes, for example, and put them on display for you to come and buy. And those very tomatoes, they have applied chemicals from cultivation, from flowering, harvesting, up to the market level. It means that you, the end user, how do you prepare them? Even when you're going to cut and, cook your food at home, from purchase itself, it's not safe. It means that now we are also consuming chemicals. There are those who buy vegetables that are already sliced in the market and go straight to the saucepan without washing them. These vegetables that you're consuming, that you're just putting straight to the saucepan, it means that you are actually going to enjoy all the chemicals.
But that is towards the sale. Mm-hmm. Let's look at, you'd only be washing off the chemicals that were sprayed to preserve these from rotting and from. Now, what happens to the chemicals that were sprayed on to the manure while at weeding stage and all these things? Where do these chemicals go?
Now, when it comes to preservation, the chemicals that were applied during cultivation, be it weeding, be it post-harvest handling, all these ones are contained within the same harvest.
So they are inside the
They are
field.
inside.
They are in the tomato.
They are in the tomato, inside the tomato. So it's why we always say that when you are cooking, when you are preparing, take enough time when you're preparing these vegetables of ours. Don't just say, okay, from the saucepan, from the cavera that you're using, that you've chopped them from and you put straight to the saucepan, you're just eating after just cooking for a few minutes. Take enough time when you're preparing them and allow the water level to reduce when you're preparing these very things that you've bought from the market. So that now the chemicals are a little bit washed away from the vegetables that you are cooking at that particular moment. How many minutes do we take while preparing them?
Now
that's also something.
Now, two things here. If you overboil these things, the nutrients that should edify the body are being wasted. If you cook them for a shorter while, you're going to consume and partake of the chemicals. So what should we do? Because now we eat these things not just to get satisfied, but to gain some nutrients into the body. Some of these greens we eat they strengthen the body immune system and prevent disease. Now, if you overcook, the nutrients are burnt out. If you cook for a shorter while, you are going to eat chemicals. So what should we do?
I know that most of the people are always in a hurry while preparing, because we are always against time, not time against us.
And we are also hungry.
And we are always hungry.
Already complaining.
You have prepared your portion, you've brought your greens, and you want to prepare very fast, eat, and then go back. But we always encourage our people that if you have enough time, cooking doesn't require you to be in a hurry. Cut these vegetables, let's say sukuma, that is capsicum, and put it on sun drying, just outside for a few minutes before you, after washing it, then expose it to the sun for some few minutes, but in a clean place. So that now you allow those chemicals to a little bit reduce from the vegetables that you're eating. Yes, we cannot go away with it, because that is the life we've got used to, but at least we can prevent if we cook, and also make sure that they dry up a little bit before we go in the final stage of frying, so that we can satisfy our hunger and be able to move forward.
Now, looking at the seeds, there are these improved seeds we have.
GMOs, genetically modified foods.
Do those things have chemicals in them?
Now, almost is it 66% of our foods that we are eating are chemically grown, apart from a few, which is actually expensive, because we cannot do away with GMOs, as you cannot identify that this is a GMO, this is not, unless you're told that was this organically grown. For organic shops, which are very few in Uganda today, you may find they have specification that this is organically grown, and the scent of this harvest is different. Even the taste, you feel it, which people are missing. Our backyard gardens that most of people have not adopted, those things are organically grown. Almost all the people that we, at our end that we engage at Wilmate Development Foundation, is that we make sure that people, what they are growing is not over congested with chemicals, but rather the percentage that is used is organic farming, organic fertilizers, organic way of growing, and even harvesting, to preserve the natural scent and the taste of what you've grown, despite of the seeds being genetically modified.
All right, now we can ignore the seeds that are genetically modified. Is there a way that we can get back to the backyard gardens? I understand we need to do business, but our health is also very important. There is no business when people are dying. You understand? Is there a way people can readopt the backyard gardens?
One of the things is that all of it starts from mindset. How ready are we when it comes to the adoption? Because if we all survive on market, meaning that even those that have the land, Mr. Emma, is that you will find them saying, oh, let me grow and sell. But we are trying to detach ourselves from that kind of mindset, that grow, sell, again buy and consume, but rather produce what you have grown, consume first at your household, then sell the surplus, but leave some again for home. So that now people have what to survive on, not just produce, sell, get money again and go and buy. Because that means that we are not food secure, as everything is being taken to the market. And we've also seen that the biggest contributors to food production are women. What about the men? What about the young people? And when this food, for example, a mother produces 1 sack of 3 sacks of maize, the husband goes ahead to sell them because he wants to get some money, go to the nearby center, and money gets done without providing for the family. What if now the husband comes home and all of us will sit on a round table and agree that, oh, this season we are going to grow X, we are going to grow maize, or we are going to grow beans. But at the end of the harvest, this is the aim of why we are growing this. When people have the aim of why they are growing, then we shall be able to achieve food security. Going back to backyard gardens, it's still the responsibility of the family to save money that is being spent on these vegetables we are buying from the nearby markets. And remember, they are the very people who are selling to us these very vegetables. And again, they are the very people who are consuming them. You produce, you sell. I say, Emmanuel, come and buy, but you are the one who sold them to me to come and again sell to you. It doesn't make sense. Save that money which you have been spending on buying vegetables on a daily basis, because it is one of the easiest foods you can ever enjoy. You can ever get at no cost if you have it readily available at your household, be it growing them in sacks, be it plastic bottles, within your compound, within your veranda.
Now I think that is more healthier. But let's in the next 2 minutes maybe make the cycle of food security clear. There are two things you're trying to put together: the cycle of food insecurity, and then the cycle of food security. So the one for food insecurity, if I'm getting it right, is you produce and sell, and then buy and consume. So I hope you're getting it right. The cycle for food insecurity, you might think you are secure, but you're not. So if you are producing and selling and then buying to consume, you are totally insecure. So now, food security is this: you produce, consume, preserve some, and then sell off the surplus. Would that be right to be called as food security?
Now, to break it down to our viewers, is that everyone is a risk manager if we are able to understand that food security and food insecurity, they all go hand in hand if we are not careful enough. Because if today you are producing food and you're aiming at making money, not at all bothered on how you are eating as a person, it means that you're food insecure, because you have nothing you're preserving for yourself. Then if you're producing, because we encourage in a 3-phase where you produce, consume, leave some for yourself, get some when need arises, and sell. That is food security. Meaning the one that you've left behind is stored somewhere in your next room at your household, because we know people have no rooms.
The ones that commonly were called granaries. Granaries, yes.
Or storage facilities that we have in the modern day of Uganda, where someone reserves, let's say, we call them garages, where you can put sacks of maize in your garage, and these ones are used within a given period of time. You say, oh, so an Emmanuel needs fees, let's sell 2 bags of maize, so that now Emmanuel can be able to go to school. But not to sell to go and buy a kg of meat. 1 kilogram of meat cannot satisfy you for the entire month, but it's just for a few hours. What about if you have food? This maize, what can be done with the maize? You say, okay, we can take it to the machine and they crush it into posho, which we can use as porridge, which you can use as food at the end of the day. But this local knowledge, just readily available to all of us, is not being utilized. Someone harvests 50 bags of rice from his garden or wetland and sells the entire rice the way he has harvested it, without leaving anything for
and home. Then he goes and buys rice again.
The same rice.
Now, away from that, we have about 6 minutes to jump out of here. How can we produce these greens? Because to the best of my knowledge, they can be produced even in your small muzigo. How do we produce these greens? Either using sacks or using these bottles, whatever it is. Let's do something practical.
Now, we always buy tomatoes, we always buy eggplants, those simple items, be it carrots. And the tomatoes we buy, they have seeds in them, which you can remove from the tomato itself and sun dry them a little bit, or you plant them directly to your small jerry can that you have chopped into two if you don't have land. And these ones you can always apply ash if you have if you're cooking on firewood, or the sigiris of ours, the charcoal stoves. You apply it within the soil that you have. Look for black soil, not yellow soil or brown soil. Yes, we understand we have that in place. And also, if you have chicken, those ones who are rearing chicken, you can try to get those droppings, which are one of the best manures you can ever have. If you don't have that, you can still look for the cow dung, droppings, which you can mix with the soil, leave it dry a little bit. Now put it in that chopped jerry can, and then put some water, a little bit. Don't make it too, wet, but a little bit wet. Apply your seeds. Cover it a little bit, so that now within a given period of time, these things will start to germinate, which will allow you to keep watering. We have what we call nakati in the local language, sukuma wiki, which all of us can grow. Buying the seedlings costs you only around 6,000 from the innovation village here, industrial village, where you can buy those things and plant them. And remember, one packet of sukuma can plant almost half an acre if you use it very well. And this can be applied even the jerry cans, where you just remove some few seedlings and you apply to your garden. And these ones, you can keep enjoying them for a given period of time, as long as you have everything in place. If you don't have sacks, you can use your clothes, the old ones, as gardens, by just learning things where we have smartphones. So we always encourage people to learn. Invest in learning rather than investing on things that don't matter. It's very important.
So investing on TikTok might not be very useful as compared to investing on how to grow some reasonable greens for yourself. You've heard human urine is very good manure, very good manure. Chicken droppings, cow droppings, this is all. And what does it benefit you to have a flower and yet you don't have good good food for yourself? You'd rather have no beauty but have good food, other than keeping the flowers looking good, and yet you'll go and buy greens full of chemicals out there. Instead of planting those things and having flower pots, why not have green pots rather than having flower pots? I'm sure you'll be able to get yourself some good greens that would help you to get proper nutrition, other than eating what you don't understand. Thank you so much for keeping it Church of Uganda Family TV, where we enrich lives. Thank you, Mate, for coming to add value to our people and enriching Uganda as a nation.
Together we enrich more communities.
Exactly. So we look forward to having you around next time again. Tomorrow is a day for food security. Is the food you're eating secure? Is the beans you're eating, the greens, the rice, whatever food, more so those who are fans of chicken tonight, not only chicken tonight, but those fries, are you securely with the food you eat? From me and the team here, it's a good night. God bless you. God bless Uganda.